The afternoon sun dipped low over the sprawling Houston estate, turning the manicured backyard into a golden stage. Smoke curled from the grill, scented with mesquite and hickory, mixing with the sweetness of peach cobbler cooling on the side table. Laughter floated across the lawn, punctuated by the occasional clink of glasses, but beneath the celebration, tension pulsed quietly, invisible to anyone who did not know the undercurrents. I adjusted my navy sheath dress, smoothing it over my hips, and checked the silver bracelet around my wrist. It had been Malik's gift on our 15th anniversary, polished, elegant, a symbol of what we once had. I wondered how easily symbols could be broken. Guests arrived in clusters, smiles warm, gifts in hand. Aunt Renee carried her famous deviled eggs. Cousins and childhood friends from Atlanta were sprinkled among the crowd. My children, Jada and Malcolm, were already circulating, polite and careful, aware without needing to be told that the day would not unfold exactly as anyone expected. I offered a calm nod to each, feeling the weight of anticipation settle in my chest, steady and controlled. For months, subtle signs had whispered that Malik was drifting, that attention once reserved for me now wandered elsewhere. Today, however, the truth would erupt with the clarity only a public stage could offer. Malik moved among the guests with a charisma I once adored, at his hand resting briefly on shoulders, laughter too loud, movements precise. I noticed the cologne he wore, new, sharper, designed to be remembered. It was the same cologne Vanessa had chosen for herself this morning, or so I suspected. The moment the side gate opened, time shifted. She entered as if she owned the air, tall, confident, her red dress clinging in all the right places, heels clicking softly against the stone path. Her hair glistened in sunlight, and the smile she offered was polished, practiced, calculated. Conversations around her halted briefly, curiosity painting every face. Malik's expression changed immediately, an almost imperceptible twitch in the corner of his mouth. Recognition flared, excitement and danger intertwined. He crossed the lawn to greet her, casual yet deliberate, leaning in slightly as she laughed. My pulse did not quicken, though heat rose along my neck. I stepped forward deliberately, heels precise on the stone, in closing the distance to confront this new reality. Vanessa glanced at me with the faintest hint of evaluation, and I returned it with calm scrutiny. She would soon learn that appearances were easy, but substance, strategy, and patience were far more potent. "Claire," Malik said, voice smooth, but the edge of tension betrayed him. "This is Vanessa." Vanessa extended her hand. "I've heard so much about you." I accepted it firmly, maintaining eye contact. "I'm sure you have," I said evenly. Malik stepped back slightly, as though to give the moment more impact, and Vanessa drifted toward the drinks table, mingling effortlessly. I did not move from my place near the center of the yard, letting my calm absorb the attention without effort. Around us, conversations hummed quietly, a stark contrast to the electric tension at the heart of the party. Guests smiled politely, unsure whether to comment or avert their gaze, their unease mirrored in their body language. Malcolm shifted slightly beside me, protective instinct taut but restrained. Jada remained near the buffet, glancing my way for reassurance. Malik cleared his throat, drawing the group's attention. "Thank you all for coming," he said, voice measured, carrying over the hum of conversation. 25 years. That's no small milestone." Polite chuckles, but eyes lingered on us. He moved his gaze to me, his smile thin, controlled. "And sometimes in those years people realize what they want, what they've been missing. Life has a way of making choices unavoidable." I waited. My heart beat evenly, a quiet drum beneath the polished exterior. The air grew still as he extended a hand toward Vanessa, resting it at her lower back, an intimate gesture meant to assert dominance. He paused for dramatic effect before continuing. "This is Vanessa. She makes me feel alive again. And as for my wife—" His eyes flicked to me, sharp, assessing. "Well, some things just get old." The words struck with the precision of a scalpel, designed to wound, to humiliate in front of witnesses. A faint gasp escaped from Aunt Renee. Jada froze, her small frame stiff. Malcolm's jaw tightened beside me. Vanessa's expression did not change. Her composure was seamless, though I could sense the tension beneath. Malik expected a reaction, a tremor, a collapse. Instead, I remained still, my breath even, my gaze fixed on him. I stepped closer, deliberately, each heel striking the patio stone with purpose. The crowd's eyes followed, sensing the shift in power without understanding why. Malik's brow furrowed. Vanessa's hand twitched at her side, subtly, almost unconsciously. I did not flinch, did not speak, letting the silence extend long enough to make everyone uncomfortable. This was my stage now, my moment to silently reclaim control. "You chose quite a setting for such revelations," I said finally, my voice calm, deliberate, carrying over the soft murmur of the guests. "An anniversary, surrounded by friends and family, bold." The words were soft, measured, yet each syllable struck like steel. Malik's eyes narrowed slightly, searching for cracks in my poise. He found none. A subtle murmur moved through the crowd as realization settled. This was not defeat, not despair. I was assessing, planning, waiting. Every guest, every child, as every extended relative present was now aware that the narrative Malik attempted to script was incomplete. His performance of triumph had a flaw. It underestimated me. Malik's mouth opened to respond, but no words emerged. Vanessa's eyes flickered briefly toward him, uncertain, waiting. My pulse remained steady. The bracelet glinted in the fading sunlight, a quiet testament to endurance, patience, and preparation. For years I had allowed compromises, endured slights, smoothed tensions. Tonight, our observation replaced anger, strategy replaced panic. Malcolm shifted beside me. "Mom," he whispered quietly, as if to test me. "What are you going to do?" I met his gaze without breaking my own composure. "Watch," I said softly, confident. The word was not a threat, but a promise. The evening was far from over, and the person who thought he had the upper hand would soon discover the extent of misjudgment. The guests, unconsciously, leaned forward in subtle anticipation, the tension in the air thick and electric. The world seemed suspended between his arrogance and my quiet assurance. I inhaled slowly, a deliberate, controlled breath, feeling the weight of the moment, the sun dipping further, the shadows elongating across the patio. Every detail, the soft hum of conversation, the faint aroma of smoke, the flicker of light on the silver bracelet was a signal. Malik's confidence had miscalculated. Vanessa's composure was tested. My children's loyalty was unwavering, and in that moment every eye in the yard understood, even if they could not yet articulate, that the balance of power had shifted. The air was heavy, expectant, and I, Claire Thompson, would not be underestimated. Morning light filtered softly through the tall windows of the Houston estate, brushing the polished floors with warm gold. The house was quiet, the air heavy with the absence of Malik's voice, the absence of Vanessa's laughter. The absence of the tension that had ignited the previous evening. I stood in the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, feeling the calm but deliberate weight of anticipation. The ritual of mourning, simple as it seemed, grounded me. For years, I had let events sweep me along, smoothing conflicts, absorbing frustrations. Today, the routine was mine to shape. Malik had not returned. Messages pinged occasionally on my phone, a mix of excuses and demands, his tone increasingly anxious. The first came early, yet brief and clipped. "Where are you?" The second, "Call me now." I did not respond. He assumed panic, compliance, or desperation. He would learn differently. I focused instead on immediate priorities, securing legal documents, reviewing financial statements, and preparing for conversations that would define the next phase of our lives. Jada and Malcolm arrived mid-morning, their presence a quiet reassurance. Malcolm's tall frame filled the hallway as he handed me a travel mug of coffee. "Morning," he said softly, scanning my face for signs of weakness. None existed. I smiled at him, letting calm radiate naturally, as if the previous night's storm had left only clarity in its wake. Jada followed, notebook in hand, small but deliberate steps bringing her to stand beside her brother. Both of them had witnessed the spectacle, yet neither flinched at the truth that I now embodied. We sat around the kitchen island, the hum of the refrigerator low and steady, and sunlight highlighting each careful detail, the clean counters, the polished silverware, the faint scent of citrus and mesquite smoke lingering in corners. I outlined the day with meticulous precision. Attorney consultations, asset reviews, changes to digital accounts, and strategic communications. Each step solidified my position, transforming emotional turbulence into structured power. "He underestimates what preparation can accomplish," I said. Watching their expressions shift from worry to recognition. Malcolm's voice was steady. "He thinks this is just a game, Mum, but it's clear you've been planning." "Yes," I admitted calmly. "Planning does not guarantee vengeance, only control." Jada leaned forward. "Do you want me to handle social updates? Friends asking questions?" I nodded. "Yes, but factual. No emotion. We control the narrative. Let no one misrepresent my response or his actions." The afternoon passed with deliberate efficiency. I made calls to my attorney, Linda Harper, whose office smelled faintly of polished wood and paper. She reviewed our pre-prepared documents, filings, financial safeguards, and contingency strategies. Each recommendation was deliberate, designed to ensure that Malik could not manipulate assets or leverage social perception to his advantage. My questions were precise, measured, reflective of years managing our shared businesses and properties. By the time I left her office, I had full clarity and legal reinforcement. The power imbalance had shifted irreversibly. Returning home, I found Mariah waiting in the driveway. Her car was sleek, understated, but her posture betrayed nervous anticipation. I stepped out, closing the door behind me, inhaling the warm Houston air that carried faint traces of jasmine from the gardens. She embraced me briefly, strength in her arms, and I returned the gesture with composed reassurance. "Everything is under control," I said softly but deliberately, knowing she needed the assurance as much as I did. Inside, Mariah brought a folder of photographs and memorabilia. They were snapshots of vacations, graduations, and quiet dinners, moments of life untainted by betrayal or scandal. "I want you to remember the good," she said. "So you know what we've built, Mum, so they can't take that from you." I guided her through the images, while commenting lightly, smiling faintly, but with eyes always scanning, always calculating. The family home, once a stage for humiliation, became a repository of strategy, a testament to endurance and foresight. Endings don't erase history, I explained. They define the starting point of the next chapter. We retain dignity, clarity, and direction. Meanwhile, Malik remained unaware of the legal and financial structures I had reinforced overnight. Messages from Vanessa arrived with increasing frequency, curious, frustrated, attempting to confirm a reality she did not fully understand. Malik responded with hurried, often contradictory assurances, revealing cracks in the confident facade he wore so publicly the night before. He assumed compliance, obedience, or fear. He underestimated planning, foresight, and the patient discipline that had built me into someone neither easily intimidated nor hurried. Later in the day, I reviewed business statements, confirming that key financial measures were aligned with contingency plans. Transfers were secured, online accounts updated, and signature authorities verified. Every potential loophole, every chance for impulsive sabotage had been sealed. This was not revenge. It was security. It was control. It was inevitable recognition of my competence. Evening arrived quietly, the sun sinking low across the skyline, painting the estate in soft gold. The house was calm and deliberate. I prepared a light dinner, mindful of details, the placement of utensils, the warmth of the plates, the faint aroma of roasted vegetables mingling with the lingering perfume of jasmine from the gardens. Jada and Malcolm ate with quiet attentiveness, their presence reinforcing the domestic calm that now served as a counterpoint to the chaos Malik had attempted to instigate. A phone call interrupted the soft hum of the evening. Malik, finally, is seeking to retrieve clothes and personal items. His tone was measured, artificially polite, as if civility could repair the rupture he had orchestrated publicly. I granted permission, maintaining firm boundaries. The exchange was devoid of hostility, each word carefully measured. He left with possessions in hand, the door closing with finality behind him. The echo through the halls was symbolic, affirming that the house, once a stage for his arrogance, was now a domain of calm and control. I stepped onto the patio, the night air cool against bare arms, and inhaled deeply. The string lights flickered faintly above, the garden silent save for the whisper of wind through trees. The backyard that had held humiliation now held strategy, foresight, and deliberate calm. I allowed myself a small smile, a quiet acknowledgement that preparation, patience, and measured action had transformed vulnerability into empowerment. Malik's assumptions had failed. Vanessa's confidence faltered in absence of clarity. The children were steady, loyal, observant. And I, Claire Thompson, understood fully the scope of influence and control that composure and foresight afforded. Tonight was not victory. Tonight was preparation. And yet, in this calm, deliberate control, the balance had shifted. I inhaled the night, claiming it fully. Whatever tomorrow brought, it would be approached with strategy, precision, and the unshakable understanding that weakness had never been an option. The house, the children, the estate, and even the quiet of the night had become extensions of my resolve. I was no longer merely responding to Malik's actions. I was anticipating, directing, and shaping outcomes with clarity and authority. Every detail mattered: conversations, documents, perceptions, and timing. Everything had been accounted for. Nothing would be left to chance. As darkness settled over the estate, the weight of anticipation transformed into a quiet, deliberate power. I returned indoors, locking doors and checking windows, not from fear, but from ownership. Malik's absence was an unspoken reminder of past errors, his assumptions undone by preparation. For the first time in months, the house felt wholly mine. calm, controlled, and unassailable. I allowed myself the certainty that the next moves would. The morning sun reflected off the glass towers downtown, a harsh brilliance that mirrored the intensity of my own focus. Claire Thompson stepped out of her black sedan, heels precise against the pavement, clutching her leather briefcase like a shield and a weapon simultaneously. The city hummed around her, horns, pedestrians, distant construction. But inside the towering office building, a different rhythm awaited. Board members, attorneys, and financial advisors assembled in the conference room, each unaware of how thoroughly the game had been anticipated. Today was more than a meeting. Today was reclamation. Claire entered smoothly, eyes scanning the room with measured authority. Malik's name had been mentioned in passing, but he was absent, entangled in his own distractions, confident that she would falter. Vanessa had sent a few messages, curious about the deal, but overconfident in her influence, and neither had an inkling of the strategy carefully laid in weeks prior. Asset consolidation, contract leverage, and the perfect negotiation window. Claire set her briefcase on the table, clicking it open, and began distributing documents with deliberate precision. Each folder contained contracts, amendments, and financial instruments meticulously reviewed, cross-checked, and secured. The board chair, Thomas Reed, glanced up, eyebrows raised. "Claire, are we ready to begin?" "We are," she replied, calm and firm, her voice carrying across the polished oak conference table. "But first, I want to ensure everyone understands the scope of today's agreement." Her tone left no room for interruption or hesitation. She watched each face for reaction, noting the micro-expressions, the slight tightness of lips, the faint tilt of heads, the subtle raising of brows, all indicators that the room understood her authority, even if they did not yet fully grasp its breadth. Contracts were laid out, charts projected onto the screen, numbers flashing in bold, impossible to ignore. 3 zeros, 12 digits, all validated, all verified. $30 billion. The deal was not just financial, it was strategic dominance, control over subsidiaries, long-term investments, and partnerships previously contested or assumed to be Malik's domain. As she spoke, Claire's words were calm, deliberate, precise. "This agreement represents a consolidation of assets that were previously fragmented," she explained, ensuring legal, financial, and operational control under unified management. All contingencies have been accounted for, and the terms are non-negotiable as presented. A pause followed. The board members exchanged glances. Questions formed on lips but dissolved under her steady gaze. She allowed silence to stretch, letting the weight of her preparations settle fully on the room. This was not arrogance. This was inevitability. Claire knew the power of controlled anticipation, and she wielded it like a blade, precise and cutting. Outside, Malik paced his hotel suite oblivious. Messages from Vanessa flashed, increasingly anxious. "Did you speak to her? She's in control." His confidence wavered with every ping. He believed the deal would falter, that Claire's elegance was a veneer for indecision. He was wrong. Every document, every signature, yes, every strategic alignment had been meticulously orchestrated. He had assumed weakness. She had delivered mastery. Inside the conference room, Claire guided the discussion, addressing concerns with calm authority. Legal clauses were clarified, investment terms explained. Each question from a board member or attorney was answered succinctly, with references to contracts, prior correspondence, and regulatory validation. The energy in the room shifted subtly from curiosity to awe. No one had attempted to undermine her, and no one dared. The power was visible, undeniable, and precise. Claire's phone vibrated once, discreetly. A message from Jada. "Are you okay?" I typed back. I am steady, already in control. Another from Malcolm. Proud of you. She smiled faintly, allowing a moment of personal acknowledgement to remind herself that victory was not only professional but personal, deeply rooted in reclaiming authority from those who underestimated her. Minutes became hours. The final contract signatures were collected, the documents notarized and verified, and electronic confirmations sent. Claire leaned back slightly, a controlled exhale, the first unguarded breath in hours. She had done it. The deal was finalized. $30 billion. Control secured. No loopholes, no surprises. Only inevitability. The board chair finally broke the silence. Claire, this is unprecedented. The structure, the precision, the foresight, but it's remarkable. I do not underestimate preparation, she replied softly, her tone carrying quiet finality. This was never about rivalry. It was about certainty. Outside the glass walls, the afternoon sun had shifted, casting reflections that danced across the polished floors. The room, once tense with anticipation, now radiated acknowledgement. Respect, subtle and unavoidable, filled the space. Claire collected her briefcase, ensuring that every document, every folder, every digital confirmation was secured. She would return home not only triumphant, but untouchable. The ride back through Houston was quiet, reflective. The city moved in patterns she had navigated countless times, but now every light, every signal seemed to reflect her authority. A message from Malik appeared as she pulled into the driveway. Read. Call me immediately. Claire allowed it to remain unread, a deliberate reminder that power was patience and timing was control. At the estate, Claire stepped into the backyard, the same space that had been a stage for humiliation weeks prior. The string lights hung dormant above, the grill cold, chairs stacked neatly. She inhaled deeply, the scent of jasmine and lingering warmth of the day filling her lungs. This place, once a theatre of public degradation, had now become a testament to strategy and dominance. She allowed herself a faint smile. Vanessa arrived unexpectedly, a gift basket in hand, and her composure intact, but her confidence subtly tested. Claire noted every detail, the carefully chosen perfume, the slight hesitation in her posture, the forced cheerfulness. She received the basket with a polite nod, placing it aside. "Thank you," she said evenly. Vanessa's eyes flickered briefly toward the stack of secure documents on the patio table, recognizing, perhaps for the first time, that the woman she had assumed weak had orchestrated an empire. Malik's mother, Gloria, appeared then, as a subtle nod acknowledging Claire. In her hands, a small box of heirloom jewelry, symbols of status, respect, and influence. "I thought it best you have these," she said softly, eyes cast downward. Claire accepted the gesture without a word, aware of the symbolic power in the act. Respect had been earned, deference given. Even those once allied with Malik's narrative recognized her authority. The evening settled over the estate, a quiet dominance palpable in the air. Claire stood alone on the patio for a moment, the city lights twinkling in the distance, the children safe and proud inside. She allowed herself satisfaction, tempered with patience. Victory had been claimed, but its true power lay in recognition, in control, in inevitability. Malik's assumptions had been shattered, Vanessa's presence tested, and Gloria's acknowledgement secured. The balance of power had shifted irreversibly. Claire inhaled deeply, acclaiming the cool night air as a personal triumph. The estate, the children, the documents, the cityscape, all aligned under her command. She understood fully that the $30 billion deal was not merely business. It was a statement, a reclamation, and a lasting testament to foresight, patience, and strategic mastery. Tonight, she was untouchable. Tomorrow would follow her terms. The morning sun rose gently over the Houston estate, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns. Claire Thompson walked barefoot on the cool stone patio, breathing in the crisp air, tasting freedom in each inhale. The house was quiet, serene, yet charged with an energy that had nothing to do with chaos. Everything had shifted. Her strategy executed, the $30 billion deal secured, Malik humbled, Vanessa uncertain, and even Gloria's subtle acknowledgement of authority complete. For the first time in years, the estate belonged entirely to her, physically, socially, and symbolically. Inside, Jada and Malcolm moved through the kitchen with a casual confidence, no longer just her children, but witnesses to a transformation they had barely dared to hope for. Malcolm placed a mug of coffee in her hand, and she felt the warmth seep into her palms. "You did it, Mom," he said quietly, pride in his eyes. "I did what was necessary," Claire replied, voice calm, steady, yet tinged with satisfaction. "Control is not about pride. It's about clarity and foresight." Jada sat across the counter, scrolling briefly through her phone. "Have you seen the news?" she asked, a subtle tremor of excitement in her voice. Claire leaned closer, taking the device. Headlines proclaimed the finalization of a deal worth $30 billion, emphasizing her leadership, precision, and strategic vision. Social media buzzed, discussions circling the narrative she had crafted with careful foresight. Every journalist, every commentator, every observer acknowledged not only the financial magnitude, but the calculated power that had brought it to fruition. Claire placed the phone down, a measured smile on her lips. "Let's remember," she said, "this is not about recognition. It's about control. Ours, not theirs." The children nodded, understanding that empowerment was neither spectacle nor revenge, but deliberate, patient, and unstoppable. Malik had called earlier, his voice tentative, careful, aware that the dynamic had irrevocably shifted. Claire had allowed the call to ring briefly before declining. Control was demonstrated not by words, but by action, and the $30 billion deal was her statement. Vanessa had texted in curiosity and thinly veiled challenge, asking if she had fully grasped the implications. Claire allowed her to stew, confident that realization would dawn gradually and painfully. By late morning, Claire held a private meeting with Gloria, Malik's mother, on the back patio. Gloria arrived with careful poise, the jewelry from earlier in her hands, a subtle gift of recognition, and a quiet acknowledgement of hierarchy. "Claire," Gloria began softly, "I underestimated you. That's on me." Claire took the offered pieces, placing them gently in her purse. "Recognition is not owed, only earned," she said evenly. "You have acknowledged your position. That is enough." Gloria's nod was subtle but complete. Even within family dynamics, deference had shifted, and Claire knew that symbolic power often held more sway than confrontation. The afternoon passed in strategic calm. Claire contacted her attorney and financial advisors, confirming all measures were reinforced, legal filings completed, funds secured, and public messaging aligned to preserve reputation. Every detail reflected patience, precision, and deliberate action. Nothing was left to chance. She allowed herself small moments of satisfaction, a quiet sip of tea, and a glance at the city skyline from the patio, a lingering look at her children, confident and strong. By early evening, guests began to arrive for a casual family dinner, unaware that the household's dynamic had been transformed in ways they could not yet articulate. Friends approached cautiously, congratulating Claire on the deal, some openly impressed, others curious but cautious. She responded with calm grace, offering smiles, measured words, and the subtle air of someone fully in command of both social and financial spheres. The power was quiet but unmistakable. Malik appeared unexpectedly, attempting to regain control through proximity and conversation. Claire allowed him entrance, maintaining measured politeness. "Good evening," he said cautiously. I wanted to acknowledge—" "You're acknowledged," Claire replied evenly, interrupting the feeble attempt at reconciliation. "The contract, the assets, the process, all completed. Yeah, you've seen the results. Further words are unnecessary." He paused, realizing the house, the family, and even the social narrative had shifted beyond his manipulation. The humiliation he had orchestrated earlier now seemed small in comparison to the control Claire had exercised. Vanessa, arriving later, mirrored his hesitation, glancing at Claire with an expression somewhere between awe and apprehension. Dinner proceeded with quiet elegance. Claire guided conversations with subtle authority, weaving discussions about investments, family priorities, and shared interests with the precision of a conductor. Malik and Vanessa both attempted interventions, small comments, subtle challenges, but Claire navigated them effortlessly, deflecting, redirecting, asserting control without raising her voice. Each exchange reinforced the hierarchy, the balance of power clear to every participant. Later, as the children prepared for bed, Claire lingered in the dining room, reflecting that this victory was more than financial. It was personal, emotional, and strategic. The house that had hosted humiliation and betrayal now radiated control, preparation, and authority. Every conversation, every document, every subtle acknowledgement from family and associates reinforced the lesson Malik had refused to learn. Underestimation was dangerous. Night fell fully, the estate bathed in a soft golden glow from strategically placed lights. Claire stepped onto the balcony, city lights twinkling in the distance. She breathed deeply, savoring the quiet authority she now embodied. The path ahead would still require attention, vigilance, and careful navigation, but the foundation was secure. Malik, Vanessa, and even parts of his family had been reminded decisively that she was neither weak nor vulnerable. A text arrived from Jada. "Mum, you are unstoppable." Claire smiled faintly, typing back, "Strength is not spectacle, it is deliberate." Aunt Malcolm appeared beside her on the balcony, looking out over the estate. "You've changed everything," he said. "I have reclaimed what was always ours," she said softly. "Control, respect, and clarity. That is our inheritance, beyond wealth, beyond titles, beyond appearances." Later, alone in her study, Claire placed the documents from the $30 billion deal into a secure cabinet. Each folder, each signature, each contract was a testament not only to financial mastery, but to patience, foresight, and the ability to act with precision under pressure. She leaned back in her chair, the glow from the desk lamp highlighting her composed expression. Victory had been claimed, yet it was not loud or boastful. It was quiet, controlled, and undeniably complete. The estate around her was silent, except for the occasional night bird or distant hum of traffic. This silence, once a reminder of tension, now symbolized mastery. Every detail aligned, children protected, assets secured, family and social respect restored, adversaries humbled. The balance of power had shifted irrevocably in her favor. Claire rose and walked to the balcony once more. The night was cool, serene, and yet charged with potential. For years, she had allowed assumptions, compromise, and others' arrogance to dictate her actions. No longer. Tonight, she understood fully that preparation, patience, and strategic vision could accomplish more than emotion or spectacle ever could. And Malik had assumed weakness. She had proven strength. Vanessa had assumed control. She had demonstrated mastery. Gloria had assumed allegiance. She had gained respect.